On my daughter's birthday, she raised her glass and said, "The best gift would be for you to disappear." So that's what I did. While she was on vacation, I sold the house and flew off to travel around Europe. And the letter I sent destroyed her life forever. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you were listening in the comments. The envelope felt heavier than it should have as I pushed through the restaurant door. Inside, laughter bounced off exposed brick walls, and I spotted Etta immediately at the head of a long table, her friends clustered around her like birds. The hostess gestured vaguely toward the party, but I hesitated, scanning for an empty chair. There wasn't one near Etta. I made my way around the table's edge. Someone shifted, creating a gap between two women I'd never met. I slid into it, the envelope still clutched in my right hand. Etta glanced up, her smile flickering when she saw me, then returning brighter for her guests. "Dad made it," she announced, not quite to me. "Everyone, this is Alan." A chorus of polite hellos. I nodded, setting the envelope on the table in front of my plate. Wallace sat beside Etta, his arm draped across the back of her chair. He wore one of those shirts with tiny patterns that cost too much, and his watch caught the light when he reached for his wine. We ordered. Appetizers came. I waited for the right moment, watching Etta hold court, her hands animated as she told some story about a client meeting. Her friends laughed at the punchline. When the waiter cleared the plates, I picked up the envelope. "Etta," I said, leaning forward slightly. "Happy birthday." She turned, eyebrows raised. I extended the envelope across the table. She took it, examining the front like she expected something to be wrong with it. Behind her, Wallace watched with that half smile he always wore around me. She tore it open. 2 tickets slid onto the tablecloth. Hawaii. 7 days, oceanfront resort. Flights included. I'd spent 2 months saving the $4,200. Etta glanced at them, then at me. "Oh, Hawaii. I know you mentioned wanting to go," I said. My voice sounded thin. "Yeah, sure. Thanks, Dad." She placed the tickets beside her water glass, already turning back to the woman on her left. "Anyway, like I was saying about the presentation," I felt my smile lock into place. Around the table, a few guests looked at the tickets, then at me, then away. Wallace picked up one of them, whistled low. "Nice, Alan. Must have cost a fortune." He said it like he was commenting on the weather. "I wanted to do something special," I managed. Etta took a long sip of wine, set down her glass, and looked directly at me. Her voice carried clearly over the conversation. "You know, Dad, the best gift would be your disappearance. Seriously." The table went quiet. Someone's fork clinked against a plate. Wallace's laugh erupted first, loud and genuine. "Oh, that's cold, babe." He was still laughing, shaking his head. A few guests smiled uncomfortably. One woman, the blonde across from me, stared at her napkin. I kept smiling. My face felt like wax. "I mean it," Etta continued, lighter now, like she'd made a joke. "Just imagine. Waking up and the house is actually mine. No more tiptoeing around." "Etta, that's—" the blonde started. "What? I didn't ask for his charity." Etta picked up the tickets, slid them back into the envelope, and dropped it beside her purse. "But sure, Hawaii, we'll use them." The waiter arrived with the main course. Conversation resumed, fragmenting into smaller discussions. I cut my salmon into precise pieces, chewed mechanically, swallowed. Wallace said something about work. Etta laughed. I nodded when someone asked me a question about Portland weather. When we finally left, the night air hit my face like cold water. Wallace jangled my car keys. He always drove my car, had done so for 3 years now, and Etta walked ahead to the passenger side. I climbed into the back seat. The leather creaked under me. Wallace adjusted the mirror, started the engine. "Did you see his face?" he said, pulling into traffic. Old chump swallowed it again. Etta turned slightly in her seat. I could see her profile in the streetlight. "He's not going anywhere. He's too weak." "Think he'll actually move to the basement if we ask?" "Probably. He does whatever I tell him." My hands found the door handle. I gripped it, felt the metal press into my palm, watched the city lights blur past. They kept talking, their voices floating back to me like sounds from another room. I stopped listening to the words. We pulled into the driveway. I waited for Wallace to unlock the doors, then walked across the lawn to the front entrance. Inside, the house was dark except for the lamp Etta insisted stay on in the entryway. I moved through the hall, past the master bedroom, their bedroom, to the small room at the end, my room. I closed the door quietly, sat on the edge of the bed, still in my coat. The envelope was probably still in Etta's purse, crumpled now, forgotten. $4,200. 7 years since my wife died, and Etta moved back home with Wallace. 7 years of watching my house become theirs. I sat there until dawn, and by the time light crept through the window, I knew exactly what I had to do. Sleep never came. I lay on top of the covers, shoes still on, watching the ceiling change from black to gray. Around 4 in the morning, I heard them laughing in the master bedroom, the sound muffled but clear enough. Their voices carried through the walls like smoke. I replayed it all, not just tonight, everything. The day they took the master bedroom, 3 months after moving in, Etta standing in the doorway with her hands on her hips. We need more space for our king bed. You understand, right? I'd moved my things that afternoon while they went furniture shopping. The credit card statement from last October, $2,300 in charges I never made, clothes, restaurants, a weekend in Seattle. When I'd asked about it, Wallace had shrugged. Family card, right? My garage spot, occupied permanently by Wallace's truck. My car sat in the driveway now, exposed to weather. Every weekend morning for 7 years, me in the kitchen at 6, making coffee, preparing breakfast. Etta and Wallace sleeping until noon, then appearing in their robes, taking the food like room service. The clock read 6:15 when I finally stood. My joints protested. I walked to the bathroom, splashed water on my face, and went to the kitchen. The routine moved through me automatically. Coffee brewing, eggs in the pan, toast in the slots. I set the table for 3, though I knew they wouldn't appear for hours. They emerged at 10:30, Wallace first, yawning, wearing pajama pants and nothing else. Etta followed in an oversized shirt, her hair tangled. They sat without greeting me. Wallace poured coffee, took a long drink, then stretched his arms overhead. Etta, maybe we should ask your dad to move to the basement. We need that room for a home office. Etta brightened. That's brilliant. We could finally have proper space. I was putting jam on my toast. My hand stopped moving. Wallace spoke louder, directing it at me now. Alan, you don't mind, right? Basement's cozy. Etta didn't look up from her phone. He doesn't mind. He never minds anything. I set down the knife. The sound of metal on ceramic seemed to fill the kitchen. I stood, picked up my plate, and walked out. Behind me, they continued talking, Wallace saying something about buying a new desk, Etta laughing. In my home office, the smallest room in the house, formerly a den, I locked the door, set my plate on the filing cabinet, opened the bottom drawer and pulled out the folder I kept there. House deed, mortgage papers, paid off 12 years ago, purchase documents from 1998, when my wife and I bought this place for $160,000. My name, only my name. I sat at the desk, turned on the laptop, typed slowly, Oregon property law, sole owner. Results flooded the screen. I clicked through them, reading carefully. Then, eviction Oregon family member. More results. I bookmarked 3 law firm websites. The house was worth $600,000 now, maybe more. The neighborhood had changed, young families moving in, coffee shops replacing auto parts stores. Someone would buy it within a week of listing. I opened a new tab. Real estate attorneys, Portland. Sorted by rating. Found 5 firms with perfect reviews. Wrote their names in my notebook. Morrison and Associates, Westside Legal Group, Patterson Law. Another tab. Realtors, Portland, Oregon. I recognized one name from a sign 3 blocks away. Added it to the list. My coffee had gone cold. I drank it anyway, staring at the bookmarked pages. Etta's voice drifted from somewhere in the house, probably talking to Wallace about the basement. My basement, in my house. I closed the laptop and pulled out my phone. Morrison and Associates had a simple website, professional photos of 3 attorneys, a phone number centered at the top. I read their practice areas, family law, estate planning, real estate disputes. My finger hovered over the call button. Through the door, I heard Wallace's footsteps on the stairs. Going up, not down. The footsteps faded. I pressed the button. The week after the basement comment, I became 2 people. At breakfast, I was still the quiet father making coffee, setting out plates, nodding when Wallace complained about traffic. But in the afternoons, when Etta and Wallace were at work, I was someone else entirely. The phone rang twice before a woman's voice answered. Morrison and Associates. I need to speak with Claude Miller, I said, about a property matter. She scheduled me for Thursday afternoon. I told Etta I had a retiree architectural society meeting. She didn't look up from her phone. I spent 3 days preparing, pulled the house deed from the safe in my closet, the one Etta didn't know existed, spread it across my desk, read every line. Purchase date, April 1998. Owner, Alan James Peterson. No co-signers, no joint tenancy. Just my name, black ink on official paper. I searched online each afternoon, clearing my browser history afterward. Oregon property law, sole ownership rights, eviction procedures, fast property sales. The words blurred together, but patterns emerged. I took notes in a small leather journal, kept it locked in my briefcase. Thursday came. I left at 1, drove downtown to a cafe 3 blocks from the attorney's office, ordered coffee I didn't drink, waited. Claude Miller arrived at 2:15, younger than I'd expected, maybe 42, carrying a slim leather portfolio. Mr. Peterson? He extended his hand. His grip was firm. We sat in the back corner. I slid the house deed across the table. He examined it, nodding occasionally, then looked up. In Oregon, if you're the sole owner on the deed, you have complete authority, he said. Occupants without ownership have no legal say in the sale. I kept my voice level. Even if it's my daughter living there, even then, legally she's a tenant without a lease. You're not required to notify her until sale completion. He tapped the deed. This is straightforward. You want to sell? Yes. Timeline? Fast. He wrote something in his portfolio. Standard closing takes 30 to 45 days. With the right buyer and cash offer, we can compress that. But there's a practical issue. Buyers prefer vacant properties. I understand. Can you manage that? I thought of the Hawaii tickets, still sitting somewhere in Etta's room. Yes. Claude quoted his fee structure. I wrote a check for $350. He gave me his card, told me to call when I had a listing agent. We shook hands again. I walked back to my car feeling lighter than I had in years. That weekend, I found Cecil Thompson's name on a real estate sign 4 blocks from my house. Called Monday morning. He arrived Tuesday at 3, when I knew Etta and Wallace would be at work until 6. Cecil was my age, maybe a few years younger, with the enthusiasm of someone who genuinely loved houses. He walked through each room, taking notes, photographing angles. Laurelhurst, he said, standing in the living room. This is a desirable neighborhood. Young families, professionals, original hardwood floors, updated kitchen. What year was the roof replaced? 2018, he nodded, adding to his notes. In the kitchen, he checked cabinet hinges, water pressure, appliance models. Upstairs, he measured the master bedroom, commented on the bathroom fixtures. He spent 10 minutes examining the basement. Back in the living room, he pulled out his tablet, showed me comparable sales. Houses within a 6-block radius. Sale prices, days on market, final offers versus asking. Based on current conditions in these comparables, I'd list at $520,000, he said. Market's strong right now. I can get you asking price, maybe more. I'd paid $160,000 in 1998. How fast can you move? With the right buyer, 3 to 4 weeks from listing to closing. He studied my face. You looking to move quickly? Yes. Any complications? Occupants? They'll be gone when needed. Cecil smiled. Then we're in business. I'll draft the listing agreement. We can have you on the market within a week. I signed his papers the next day, back at his office in a small commercial building off Burnside. Standard commission, 6%. Exclusive listing agreement. He promised to start marketing immediately. Driving home, I calculated timelines in my head. 30 to 45 days from listing to closing. That meant mid-May at the earliest, possibly early June. I needed Etta and Wallace gone for at least a week during that window. The house had to be empty when the sale finalized. I pulled into my driveway, parked in my usual spot outside the garage where Wallace's truck sat. Walked through the front door. Etta was in the living room, scrolling through her phone. She didn't glance up when I entered. I went to my room, closed the door, sat on the edge of the bed. Everything was in place except one crucial element. They needed to be gone when the sale closed. And then I remembered. The Hawaii tickets were still sitting unused in Etta's room. The Hawaii tickets had been sitting in Etta's dresser for 2 months. She'd barely glanced at them since the party. but they had an expiration date printed clearly on the bottom, May 28th. That gave me an idea. I started slowly. The next morning at breakfast, I mentioned it casually while pouring coffee. Those tickets expire end of May. Seems wasteful. Etta looked up from her yogurt. I'll go when I feel like it. Of course, just mentioning. I returned to the stove, flipping eggs. 2 days later, I left a glossy hotel brochure on the kitchen counter, Hawaii Resort, featured prominently on the cover, found it online, ordered overnight delivery. Etta walked past it twice before Wallace picked it up. This place looks incredible, he said that evening, showing her the photos. Infinity pools, ocean views, spa packages. Dad probably left it there, Etta said, dismissive. But Wallace kept the brochure. I saw it on his nightstand the next time I put away laundry. I listed the house with Cecil on May 1st. He uploaded photos, created the listing, scheduled showings. I made sure to be present for everyone, telling Etta I was visiting old colleagues, running errands, anything to explain my absences. She never questioned it. May 4th, Wallace brought up Hawaii during dinner. Why not take the free vacation? Everything's paid for. We'd be stupid to waste it. Etta shrugged. Fine. First week of May? Make it mid-May. I need to clear some sales first. I said nothing, just cleared plates and loaded the dishwasher while they debated dates. Cecil called on May 7th. I was in the garage, supposedly organizing tools. Alan, I have a serious buyer, Dr. Effie Chen, relocating from San Francisco. She's offering $515, cash, close within 7 days. My heart rate didn't change. When can she close? She's flexible, prefers mid-May. That work for you? I watched Wallace's truck through the garage window. Mid-May works perfectly. I'll draft the purchase agreement. Can you come by tomorrow to review? 2 o'clock. That night, I heard them through the walls. Wallace's voice carried easily. Let's book it for May 12th through 19th. 7 nights. That give you enough time? I suppose, Etta said, if we have to go. I lay in bed, calculating. May 12th departure meant they'd be gone by early afternoon. Closing was scheduled for May 14th. Cecil would handle everything. I'd signed papers at his office while they were 3,500 miles away, lying on a beach I'd paid for. The next morning, Wallace announced at breakfast they'd booked the flights. May 12th departure, 1:15 in the afternoon. Return on the 19th. That's nice, I said, refilling his coffee. You'll enjoy it. Etta finally looked at me. Thanks for the tickets, I guess. You're welcome. Cecil's office smelled like fresh paint and copy paper. He spread the purchase agreement across his desk. 15 pages of legal language, terms, and conditions. Closing date stamped on page 3. May 14th, 10 in the morning. Effie Chen's physician relocating for a hospital position, Cecil explained. She needs housing immediately, starting her new job June 1st. Cash buyer, no financing contingencies. This is as clean as sales get. I read every page. Sale price, $515,000. Cecil's commission, $30,900. Closing costs, another $12,000 estimated. That left me roughly $470,000, give or take a few thousand depending on final adjustments. I signed on every marked line. What about the occupants? Cecil asked. They'll be gone by the 12th. House will be vacant. He nodded, satisfied. I'll coordinate with the title company. Effie wants to move in immediately after closing. That a problem? No problem at all. I drove home carefully, keeping exactly at the speed limit. It was May 9th, 3 days until Etta and Wallace left. 5 days until the house became someone else's property. 5 days until my daughter came home to find locks changed and ownership transferred. Wallace was in the garage when I pulled up, loading golf clubs into his truck. Hey, Alan, can you watch the house while we're gone? Water plants, that kind of thing? I met his eyes. Of course. I'll take care of everything. Appreciate it, old man. Old man. I smiled. Have a wonderful trip. Etta appeared in the doorway, connecting garage to house, holding her phone. Wallace, did you book the airport parking? Handling it now? She glanced at me, then away. We're leaving Monday around noon. We'll catch lunch before the flight. I'll make sure everything's ready, I said. On the last day of April, everything aligned. Wallace booked their flights for May 12th. Cecil confirmed closing for May 14th. I had exactly 2 weeks to prepare for their departure and my disappearance. The morning of the 12th arrived clear and bright. I made coffee as usual, watching Etta and Wallace drag their suitcases down the stairs. They were excited, laughing about Mai Tais and beach sunsets. I said nothing, just grabbed my car keys. "Thanks for the ride, Dad," Etta said at the airport curb, barely looking at me as Wallace unloaded their luggage. "See you in a week." "Have a safe flight," I said. Wallace grabbed the last bag, grinning. "Don't burn the house down while we're gone." I watched them walk toward the terminal entrance. Etta's carry-on rolled behind her, one wheel squeaking. Wallace had his arm around her waist. They passed through the automatic doors without looking back. I parked the car and went inside, stood at the terminal window until I saw them clear security. They disappeared into the crowd beyond the checkpoint. Gone. I drove home slowly, taking surface streets instead of the highway. The house felt different when I walked inside, quieter. I stood in the living room, looking at the furniture we'd bought together 27 years ago. The couch, the coffee table with the stain from Etta's childhood art project. May 13th, I met the notary at her office on Hawthorne. Small space, second floor above a bookstore. She spread the documents across her desk. "Sign here, here, and initial here," she said, pointing with a pen. "This transfers all ownership rights." My hand moved steadily, no tremor, no hesitation. Each signature felt like unlocking a door. Cecil called that afternoon. "Congratulations, Alan. Clean sale. Funds should hit your account by end of day." They did. I checked my phone at 6, $482,043.18. Everything minus Cecil's commission, attorney fees, closing costs. I stared at the number for a long time. I spent the 14th packing. 2 suitcases, that's all I'd decided. One for clothes, one for documents, and a few personal items. My passport, birth certificate, the architectural sketches from my early career. 3 shirts I actually liked. I left the closets full. Etta's winter coat still hung in the hall. Wallace's golf clubs leaned against the garage wall. Not my problem anymore. Effie Chen arrived at 5. I'd given her my schedule when Cecil coordinated the closing. She was younger than I'd pictured from Cecil's description, maybe 33, wearing scrubs under her jacket, coming from the hospital. "Dr. Chen," I said, opening the door. "Effie, please." She stepped inside, looking around. "It's beautiful. Even better than the photos." I handed her the keys, garage remote, the envelope. "I'll make sure she gets this when she arrives," Effie said, examining the sealed envelope. "She's expecting to return on the 19th. Please give it to her then." "Of course." She looked at the furniture. "And you're sure about leaving everything?" My voice came out flat. "I'm sure. It's yours now." I showed her the basics: thermostat location, circuit breaker panel, the living room window that stuck sometimes. She took notes on her phone. We shook hands at the door. I walked out carrying my 2 suitcases, didn't look back. The flight left Portland at 10:45 on the 15th. 5 hours to Newark, then 7 hours overnight to Lisbon. I bought an international phone plan during the Newark layover, sitting in a terminal chair watching planes take off. The woman at the kiosk asked if I was visiting family. "No," I said, "just me." Lisbon appeared below as dawn broke. Orange tile roofs, the river cutting through the city, morning light turning everything gold. I'd chosen it because my wife and I had talked about going someday. We never made it. Now I was going alone. The hotel was in Alfama, oldest part of the city. Narrow cobblestone streets, buildings pressed close together, laundry hanging between windows. My room was small, clean white walls, single bed, window overlooking the street 3 floors below. I pulled the old phone from my pocket, the one with my Portland number, the one Etta had, the one tied to my old life, powered it down completely, removed the SIM card, placed it in the hotel safe, and locked the door. The new Portuguese SIM sat in my wallet, ready when needed. I unpacked slowly, hung my 3 shirts in the narrow closet, stacked my documents in the desk drawer, set my passport on the nightstand. I locked the old phone in the hotel safe and pocketed the new one. The room was small but clean, overlooking narrow cobblestone streets. Outside, I heard Portuguese conversations, street musicians, life continuing. My life, for the first time in years, mine alone. I woke to unfamiliar sounds, church bells, seagulls, Portuguese voices rising from the street below. For a moment, I didn't remember where I was. Then it hit me. I was free. No one knew where I was. No one could demand anything. I smiled. The first 3 days blurred together in the best way. I wandered Alfama's maze of streets with no destination. Found a cafe where an old woman served coffee and pastel de nata, pointing at things when my Portuguese failed. I nodded, said obrigado badly, ate whatever she brought. I rode tram 28, the yellow tourist line that climbed the hills. Camera around my neck like I belonged there. Took photos of tile work, doorways, laundry lines. Nobody knew me. Nobody expected anything. I could disappear into crowds or sit alone in squares, watching pigeons and old men playing cards. My budget calculations were simple: $482,000. Cost of living in Lisbon was roughly half of Portland. I could live modestly for years, maybe decades if I was careful. Small apartment eventually, instead of the hotel. Weekly markets instead of restaurants. I had time to figure it out. On my new phone, I checked Instagram occasionally. Old habits. Etta's account was public, always had been. May 17th, she posted a sunset beach photo. Caption, Paradise. Wallace appeared in a poolside photo the next day, cocktail in hand, tagged at their resort. May 19th morning, Etta's story showed the airport terminal. Heading home? Then nothing. That evening, 11 at night, Lisbon time, 3 in the afternoon, Portland, I retrieved the old phone from the safe, powered it on. It took a moment to find signal, then exploded with notifications. 34 missed calls, all Etta, 17 voicemails, text messages stacked in an endless scroll. I pressed play on the first voicemail. "Dad, what did you do?" Etta's voice, high-pitched, panicked. "The door won't open. Some woman says this is her house now. Where are you? Answer." I skipped ahead. Voicemail 5. "This isn't funny. Call me back right now." Anger replacing panic. Voicemail 12. Wallace's voice. "What kind of sick joke is this? We have nowhere to go." I kept skipping through them, watched the progression. Anger gave way to confusion, confusion to desperation. By voicemail 28, Etta's voice had changed completely. "Dad, please, just tell me what's happening." I powered the phone off mid-message, locked it back in the safe. My laptop sat on the small desk. I opened it, checked email. One from Effie Chen, sent 6 hours ago. "Mr. Peterson, your daughter arrived this evening around 6 p.m. I gave her your envelope as requested. She was very upset. I've allowed her 3 days to collect her belongings from the property. I hope everything is all right on your end." I typed a brief response. "Thank you for your understanding." "Yes, everything is planned." Sent it, closed the laptop. Outside my window, the Alfama was coming alive with evening activity. Voices echoing between buildings. Fado music drifting from somewhere below. The smell of grilled sardines from a nearby restaurant. I grabbed my jacket and headed out. Found a small tavern 2 streets down, sat at a table near the window. The waiter approached, friendly. "Café? Pastel de nata?" He pointed at the menu. "Sim, obrigado," I said, gesturing to the grilled fish another table was eating. He nodded, disappeared into the kitchen. I sat watching people pass on the street, couples holding hands, old women carrying shopping bags, a man walking a small dog. Normal life, anonymous life. While I was eating grilled sardines at that riverside tavern, Etta was standing outside my old house, locked out. I didn't know the exact details until I'd checked the phone, but I could imagine it. The key not working, the panic rising, the strange woman opening the door, explaining she was the owner now, the envelope with just 2 words inside, "Happy birthday." I'd thought about writing more, an explanation maybe, justification, but those 2 words said everything that needed saying. She'd understand. Eventually. Back at the hotel later, I stood at the window looking down at the street. Tomorrow I'd explore Belém, see the tower and monastery everyone talked about. Tonight, I'd sleep without setting an alarm. The phone could stay in the safe for another week, maybe longer. I had nowhere to be, no one waiting, no one to answer to. Just me and a city full of strangers who didn't know my name. I fell into a routine, mornings exploring, afternoons at cafes, evenings watching sunset from Miraduro de Santa Lucia. Every 2 days, I retrieved the old phone from the safe, a ritual checking in on the life I'd left behind. May 21st. I unlocked the safe, pulled out the phone, powered it on. The notification counter climbed, 79 missed calls. I scrolled through the log, all Etta, except 3 from Wallace. I pressed play on Wallace's voicemail from the 20th. Because of you, we're on the street. His voice filled the small hotel room, raw with rage. Come back and fix this, old man. I deleted it, selected another. Etta's voice, May 23rd. Dad, how could you? She was crying, words breaking apart. All our things. We had to rent some awful studio for $1,400. We have no money. I pressed skip. Another one from Wallace, May 24th. A text message this time. Answer your phone, you coward. I kept scrolling. May 25th, Etta again. Her voice had changed, exhausted, empty. Please, just tell me you're okay. I need to know you're alive. I closed the messages, opened my laptop at the small desk. New email from Effie, sent yesterday. Mr. Peterson, your daughter and her husband collected their belongings this week. There was a significant argument right outside my house. He was accusing her of something. I couldn't make out all the words, but voices were raised. They both seemed very distressed. I read it twice. Pictured Wallace pointing fingers, Etta trying to explain, their unity fracturing under pressure. I'd seen it happen in architectural firms. When projects collapsed, partnerships dissolved fast. I opened my banking app, scrolled through transaction history. The credit cards I'd canceled before leaving showed final status. Account closed, but the historical charges remained visible. Restaurants, 200, 300 at a time, clothing stores, electronics, thousands accumulated over months. Every charge declined on May 19th. They'd been living entirely on my credit, not supplementing their income, replacing it. I powered down the phone, deleted the voicemails I'd listened to, clearing space, locked it back in the safe, walked downstairs into Lisbon afternoon sunshine. A vendor sold grilled chestnuts on the corner. I bought a paper cone full, ate them slowly while watching tourists photograph tile work. My hands were steady, my breathing even. 2 days later, I checked again. 93 missed calls now. I listened to one from May 26th, Etta's voice barely above a whisper. I keep thinking about the party, what I said. You just wanted to give me something nice, and I don't know why I said those things. I deleted it, locked the phone away. The days continued. I rode tram 28 to Belém, toured the monastery. Ate pastel de nata at the original bakery, walked along the Tagus River at sunset. Every evening, I returned to my hotel, and the phone stayed locked away until the next 2-day cycle. May 28th. 104 missed calls. I scrolled through without listening, saw the timestamps clustering, early morning calls, lunch hours, late nights. Desperation has a rhythm. I opened my laptop at a cafe in Bairro Alto, ordered a coffee, checked my bank statement again. $482,000 minus hotel costs and daily expenses. I'd spent maybe $3,000 in 2 weeks. At this rate, I could travel for years. Another email from Effie. Just wanted to confirm your daughter retrieved the last items today. She asked if I knew where you'd gone. I told her I had no information. Hope that was correct, I typed back. That was correct. Thank you for everything. I closed the laptop. The phone went back in the safe that afternoon. I wouldn't check it again until I reached Spain. I'd been in Lisbon 3 weeks. It was time to move on. I booked a flight to Barcelona for early June. The phone went back in the safe. I wouldn't check it again until I reached Spain. Early June brought change. I packed my 2 suitcases and caught a morning flight to Barcelona. Lisbon had served its purpose. Distance from Portland, time to breathe, space to think. Now I wanted color, architecture, life pulsing through streets. The Gothic Quarter called to me, those medieval alleys I'd studied in architecture school but never walked. The flight took just over 2 hours. I watched Portugal disappear below, then the blue expanse of Mediterranean, then Spain's eastern coast appearing. Barcelona spread beneath the plane's wing as we descended. The grid of Example, the spine of Las Ramblas, Sagrada Familia rising like a Gothic fever dream. The hotel sat on a narrow street near Las Ramblas, close enough to hear the crowds but far enough to sleep. My room was small, 4th floor, overlooking a plaza where old men played chess at stone tables. I unpacked slowly, establishing new routines, hung my 3 shirts in the closet, set my passport on the nightstand, placed my phone in the room's safe. Not the old ritual, just habit now. Barcelona welcomed me with late spring warmth. I spent my first days learning the neighborhood. Morning walks through Gothic quarter alleys, streets so narrow I could touch both walls if I stretched. Medieval stonework, Roman ruins visible through glass floors and museums. Afternoons at Sagrada Familia, Gaudi's vision rising toward the sky. Still unfinished after a century. I'd go back 3 times that week, sitting on benches across the street, watching light change the colors of the stained glass. Evenings, I discovered tapas bars in El Born, small places where locals gathered after work, standing at bars, sharing plates of jamon and olives and anchovies. I learned to order in broken Spanish, pointing when words failed. The bartenders were patient, amused by my efforts. A week passed before I checked the phone. Mid-June. I'd been walking Barceloneta Beach, feet in sand, watching cargo ships far out on the horizon. Back at the hotel, I retrieved it from the safe. 137 missed calls. The frequency was dropping. I scrolled to recent voicemails, pressed play on one from June 14th. Eda's voice was different now. Not angry, not crying, just flat. Exhausted in a way that went beyond physical tiredness. Dad, Wallace left. He blamed me for everything. Said I destroyed it all with my mouth at that party. That one stupid comment that made you snap. She paused. I heard traffic in the background, cars passing. We're getting divorced. I sold his truck to pay off the credit card debt. Over $20,000 we'd charged. I didn't realize how much until the bills came, and you weren't there to... Anyway. Another pause. Longer. Please, just let me know you're alive. I powered down the phone, locked it back in the hotel safe. Went out for lunch at a small place near the Picasso Museum. Ordered grilled sardines and a glass of white wine. Sat in the sun, watching tourists photograph the museum entrance. Wallace had left. The marriage hadn't survived financial pressure. I thought about that while eating my sardines. 7 years they'd lived in my house, spending my money, taking my support for granted. The moment it disappeared, so did their relationship. Like a building with no foundation. Looked solid until you tested it. Barcelona treated me well. I walked everywhere, camera around my neck like a tourist. Photographed tile work, doorways, the play of light on old stone. Visited the Picasso Museum, Macbie, the Fundació Miró up on Montjuïc. I'd been an architect my whole life, but never traveled like this. Unscheduled, open, following curiosity instead of deadlines. I took the funicular up to Montjuïc one afternoon, walked the gardens, looked down at the city and port spreading below. Found a quiet cafe up there, ordered coffee, sat for 2 hours just watching the view. Nobody knew me. Nobody wanted anything from me. I could sit as long as I wanted. Early July, I booked a train to Florence. Something about the city had always appealed to me, ever since architecture school. Renaissance perfection, the Duomo, Brunelleschi's dome, an engineering marvel I'd studied in textbooks but never seen in person. It was time. The train ride took most of a day, cutting across southern France, then down through northern Italy. I watched landscapes change outside the window. French countryside, Alpine foothills, Italian plains. Read a paperback I'd bought at the Barcelona train station, something light about expats in Paris. Dozed occasionally in the afternoon sun, warming the compartment. Florence appeared smaller than Barcelona, more compact, more golden. The train pulled into Santa Maria Novella station, and I stepped out into Italian heat, different from Spanish heat somehow, heavier, more ancient. I found a hotel near the station, small family-run place. The owner spoke enthusiastic English with dramatic gestures, showed me to a room on the 3rd floor, tall windows opening onto a narrow street. The bathroom was tiny, shower stall barely big enough to turn around in, but the bed was comfortable, and I could walk to the Duomo in 10 minutes. That first afternoon, I did exactly that. Walked to the Duomo, stood in the piazza, neck craned back, staring up at the dome. Other tourists snapped photos, posed for selfies. I just looked, studied the engineering, the way Brunelleschi had solved the problem of spanning that enormous space. Genius work. I stood there for 20 minutes, maybe longer, just appreciating what human hands and minds had built. That evening, I found a cafe near Ponte Vecchio, sat at an outdoor table as sunset painted the Arno orange and gold. Ordered an espresso, then a small glass of Chianti. The waiter was friendly, welcoming. Americano, welcome to Firenze. Thank you, I said. It's beautiful here. Si, the most beautiful. You stay long? A few weeks, maybe longer. Good, good. Enjoy, enjoy. I pulled out my phone while sipping the wine. Fewer calls now. Maybe 43 since I'd last looked in Barcelona, spread over 3 weeks. But new text messages appeared in clusters. One from early July. Lost my job today. Couldn't concentrate. Manager said I seemed absent. Everything's falling apart. Another from 2 days ago. Got 2 jobs now. Waitress daytime, cashier evenings, 12-hour days. I finally understand what it's like to survive without a safety net. I read them both twice. Set my phone face down on the small table. The waiter returned, asked if I wanted anything else. I shook my head, paid, left a generous tip. Walking back to my hotel as twilight deepened, I thought about those messages. Etta working 12-hour days, learning what survival meant. Understanding finally what I'd provided for 30 years without acknowledgement. Better late than never, I supposed, though it was definitely late. Another text came through while I was getting ready for bed. I picked up the phone from the nightstand. You were my safety net all those years. I never saw it. I read it once, set the phone down, turned off the light. Lay in darkness listening to Florence outside my window. Distant conversations, a motorcycle passing, someone's television playing through thin walls. Now she sees, I thought. Too late, but she sees. The next week I explored Florence systematically. Climbed the Duomo's 463 steps to the top. Emerged breathless onto the observation platform. Looked out at terracotta roofs spreading in every direction. Visited the Uffizi Gallery. Stood in front of Botticelli's Birth of Venus for 20 minutes, studying the composition, the colors, the way she emerged from that shell. Aita gelato in Piazza della Signoria. Wandered through Boboli Gardens, finding quiet corners where I could sit and sketch. Each evening, I returned to the same cafe near Ponte Vecchio. It became my routine. Order espresso, sometimes a small glass of wine. Watch the city's rhythm, locals rushing home from work, tourists meandering with cameras and gelato, street artists setting up for evening crowds. My phone stayed mostly silent now. Etta's messages came weekly instead of daily, each one shorter than the last. She'd stopped asking me to respond, just reported her situation like sending updates to someone far away who might care but wouldn't reply. Working doubles this week, feet hurt constantly. Manager said I'm doing well, first time anyone's praised my work in years. Saw the Hawaii tickets in my stuff while packing. Can't believe I complained about them. You spent so much. I read each message once, never replied, deleted them after a day or two, keeping my phone clean. The past was the past. These were just echoes fading. The calls had stopped completely by mid-July. No more voicemails, just occasional texts, growing more infrequent. Etta had given up on hearing my voice, accepted my silence as permanent. I finished my espresso as the Florentine sun dipped behind terracotta roofs, painting everything in shades of amber and rose. My phone vibrated against the small metal table. Another message from Etta. I almost didn't check it, but something made me look. By late July, Florence felt like home. I knew which cafes served the best espresso, which streets stayed cool in afternoon heat, which vendors at the Sano Spirito market sold the freshest produce. I'd stopped thinking about Portland every day. Sometimes a whole week passed without checking the phone. Then the email arrived from an address I didn't recognize. I was at my usual spot near Ponte Vecchio, watching tourists pose for photos on the bridge. The afternoon stretched lazily ahead, maybe a walk to Boboli Gardens, maybe just sitting here watching the Arno flow past. I opened my laptop to check the weather forecast for tomorrow. The email sat at the top of my inbox. Subject line: About Etta. My finger hovered over delete. I'd gotten good at ignoring anything related to my old life, but something made me click. Mr. Peterson, I'm Kate, Etta's friend. She asked me to write because you've blocked her. She's in bad shape. Lost 15 pounds, working 2 jobs, barely making rent. Wallace left her. She says she deserved this. Maybe you're right, but she genuinely regrets everything. If you care at all, please respond. Kate. I remembered her now. The blonde woman at the party who'd sat across from me, the one who'd looked uncomfortable when Etta made that comment about my disappearance. She'd tried to say something. Etta, that's... But Etta had cut her off, dismissive. I closed the laptop abruptly, left a €10 note on the table, more than enough for the espresso. Walked away without finishing it, something I never did. The cup sat there, still half full, as I crossed the bridge. For hours I walked Florence streets I'd come to know, crossed the Arno twice, climbed the long path up to Piazzale Michelangelo, stood at the overlook, looking down at the city spreading below, the Duomo rising in the distance. Tourists took selfies, vendors sold cheap souvenirs. I just stood there, hands in my pockets, thinking about words I'd read on a screen. Lost 15 pounds, working 2 jobs, barely making rent. Back in my hotel room that night, I sat at the small desk, opened the laptop, stared at a blank email reply. The cursor blinked, waiting. I typed 3 words. I'm doing well, deleted them. Started again. Thank you for, deleted that too. Closed the laptop. Walked to the window. The Alfama had lights coming on as evening fell, restaurants opening, the neighborhood coming alive. The next day I didn't write anything, just walked, visited the Uffizi again, stood in front of paintings I'd already seen twice, bought gelato I didn't finish, sat in parks watching pigeons. Day 3. Still nothing written. I kept opening that blank email, staring at it, closing it again. On the 4th day something shifted. I sat at a different cafe, one I'd never been to before, near Santa Croce, ordered an Americano, opened the laptop, and typed without stopping. Thank you for writing. Tell Aita I'm alive and well. But I'm not returning. She wanted my disappearance. She received it. Let her live her life now. I hit send before I could reconsider. Closed the laptop, drank my coffee. It tasted bitter. Kate replied within hours. I was back at the hotel when the notification came through. She cried when I told her, but she said she understands. I read it 3 times. Closed the email. That should have been the end. The calls stopped completely after that. I checked my phone a few days later. Nothing new. Then a week passed. Still nothing. Late August, I pulled it out of my bag where I'd been keeping it, not even bothering with the safe anymore. The ritual had become meaningless. One last voicemail. August 5th, almost 3 weeks old. I'd missed it in my deliberate avoidance. I pressed play, held the phone to my ear. Dad. Aita's voice was barely recognizable, small, broken, raw in a way I'd never heard. I'm not calling anymore. I understand now. A pause. I heard her breathing, uneven. You were right. I was a monster. I'm sorry. She was crying, not the performative tears from before, not the manipulation I'd witnessed for years. Real ones, exhausted ones. The kind that come when you finally run out of fight. Then silence. The message ended. I stood there in my small hotel room, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to nothing. Set it down carefully on the desk. Picked it up again. Played the message a second time. Then a third. Each time, I heard something different. The first time, the words themselves. The second time, the exhaustion behind them. The third time, the acceptance. She wasn't asking for anything, wasn't demanding I return or fix anything, just acknowledging what she'd learned. I set the phone down and walked to the window. Florence spread below me, golden in evening light. The Duomo rose against the sky. Tourists filled the streets, life continuing, indifferent to one man's small drama. I'd made my decision months ago. Nothing changed that. Nothing could. But I could acknowledge what she'd learned. That was enough. I booked a flight back to Barcelona the next morning, not running this time, choosing, moving forward, not away. Late August found me back in Barcelona, not passing through this time, staying, building something. I spent 3 days looking at apartments before I found the right one. Small place in Gracia, 2nd floor of a converted building. Tree-lined streets outside, local markets on every corner, neighborhood cats sleeping in doorways. The landlord was a woman in her 60s, Maria, who spoke careful English with a thick Catalan accent. She showed me the balcony, the small kitchen, the bedroom with its single window overlooking the plaza below. €900 each month, she said. 6 months minimum? Perfect, I said. I'll take it. She handed me the keys that afternoon, 2 small brass keys on a simple ring. I held them in my palm, feeling their weight. The first keys to a place that was truly mine in 7 years. I unpacked my 2 suitcases slowly, methodically. 3 shirts in the narrow closet, my documents in the desk drawer, passport, bank statements, the house sale papers I'd kept, my architectural sketches spread on the small table. This wasn't temporary anymore. This was home. The apartment was modest, kitchen barely bigger than a closet, bathroom with a shower stall that dripped, bedroom just large enough for the bed and a chair. But the balcony. That made everything worthwhile. I could sit there with morning coffee, watch the neighborhood wake up, evening wine, watch it settle down to sleep. I pulled the old phone from my bag, powered it on one final time. The screen lit up, notifications loading. Nothing new since August 5th. Aita had kept her word. 3 weeks of silence. I scrolled through the message history one last time. Hundreds of texts, voicemails, the whole desperate chronicle of consequences catching up. I opened Instagram, something I hadn't done in months. My fingers remembered Aita's username automatically, typed it without conscious thought. Her profile appeared, last post, August 10th. 5 days after her final voicemail, a photo of herself in a waitress uniform, green fabric with white trim, name tag pinned to her chest, though I couldn't read the name from the angle. The photo was taken in a mirror, probably a restaurant bathroom, no filter, natural fluorescent light, raw, caption, new life, new lessons, no emojis, no hashtags, no performance. Just 7 words. She wasn't smiling in the photo, just looking at the camera with an expression I couldn't quite read. Tired, yes. Thinner, like Kate said. Her face had lost its fullness, cheekbones more prominent. But there was something else, something in her eyes. Not the entitled confidence from before, not the panic from the voicemails. Something quieter. Acceptance, maybe. Or the beginning of understanding. I studied the photo for a long moment. Zoomed in slightly, looking at details. The background showed industrial kitchen equipment. The uniform looked cheap, polyester probably. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, no styling. This was real work, hard work. The kind I'd done my whole life while she lived comfortably in my house. I closed Instagram, opened the messaging app, held my finger on the first conversation. Aita's name at the top, with that red notification badge I'd ignored for months. Selected it, then the next, and the next. Wallace, Cecil, Claude, Effie. Everyone connected to that old life. Delete, delete, delete. The phone asked me to confirm each one. Are you sure? Yes. Are you sure? Yes. I watched conversations disappear, months of history erasing itself line by line. When the message list was empty, I walked to the small trash bin in the kitchen, looked at the phone in my hand one more time. This device had been my window into consequences unfolding, my way of knowing the plan had worked, but I didn't need it anymore, didn't want it. I dropped it in the trash, heard it hit the bottom with a dull thunk against the plastic liner. The balcony called to me. I made coffee in my new kitchen, a simple mocha pot I'd bought that morning at the market. Watched it percolate on the small stove, filling the apartment with that rich smell. Poured it into a white ceramic cup. Added just a touch of milk from the tiny refrigerator. Outside, I arranged the single chair, sat down with my coffee. Barcelona's evening was beginning. The city spread in every direction, rooftops catching the golden light. Below in the plaza, people walked home from work. A couple argued in rapid Spanish, hands gesturing. Children played near a fountain, their laughter rising. An old man walked a small dog, life continuing its eternal rhythms. I sipped my coffee slowly, closed my eyes, felt the warmth on my face. The thought came unbidden. I didn't win by destroying her. I won by reclaiming myself. $482,000 in my bank account. Enough to live modestly for decades if I was careful. My health still good at 62. Freedom to go anywhere, do anything, answer to no one. Everything I needed, everything I'd earned through 30 years of architectural work, 7 years of humiliation, 3 months of precise planning. My new phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, checked the screen. Manuel. We'd met in Lisbon at a cafe, talked about architecture and exile and starting over. He was Portuguese, had moved to France years ago. We'd kept in touch sporadically, friendly messages every few weeks. Alan, I'm in Barcelona for business. His voice came through warm, accented. Dinner tonight? I know a great place in El Born. You must come. I felt myself smile. Genuine, unexpected, the muscles in my face remembering how. Manuel? Yes, I'd like that very much. Excellent! 7 o'clock, I'll text you the address. It's a small place, tapas, very local. You'll love it. I'll be there. Wonderful. It's good to hear your voice, my friend. I set the phone down on the small balcony table, finished my coffee slowly. The sun dropped lower, painting everything in shades of amber and gold. Somewhere below, a street musician started playing guitar, flamenco, complex and melancholy. The melody drifted up, mixing with conversations in Catalan and Spanish, with children's laughter, with the everyday symphony of a city living. Tomorrow, I'd explore more of Gracia. I'd seen a photography group advertised at a cafe meeting Wednesday evenings. Maybe I'd join. Learn more Spanish. I'd been lazy about it, relying on English. Visit that bookstore on the corner that sold used English paperbacks. Sign up for a cooking class I'd noticed at the community center. The future stretched ahead, unscripted and entirely mine. I'd spent 30 years living for others, building a home for a wife I'd loved deeply, who died too young, supporting a daughter who'd grown to despise me, tolerating a son-in-law who mocked me openly, sleeping in a small room in my own house, making coffee for people who treated me like furniture, being useful, being necessary, being invisible. Now I lived in a small apartment in Barcelona, made coffee for myself, spent my days however I chose, answered to no one, was necessary to no one, and that was perfect. Etta was working 2 jobs in Portland, learning what survival felt like without a safety net she'd never acknowledged existed. She'd lost her husband, her home, her comfortable life, everything I'd provided without recognition for years. She'd wanted my disappearance at that birthday party. She got it, and I got this. Freedom, choice, peace, morning coffee on a Barcelona balcony, dinner with a friend tonight, tomorrow's possibilities, next week's adventures, a life that was finally completely mine. That wasn't revenge. That was justice. I finished my coffee as Barcelona's evening deepened into twilight. Manuel would meet me in an hour at that tapas place in El Born. We'd have dinner, drink wine, talk about architecture and travel and life. He'd tell me about his projects in France. I'd tell him about Florence, about the Duomo's engineering marvel. We'd laugh, make plans to meet again. Tomorrow would bring whatever it brought. And the day after that. And all the days after that. All mine, every single one. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.